So just because the atmosphere is really sweet, and the Father has just really prepared kind of a table for us to come and sit down. Tonight we're actually going to hear Angela Gehring give her testimony, and so we're just going to go ahead and move right into it. And so I'll help set some things up, and we'll get going.
Usually a testimony starts with, well, this was my beginning, and it's usually not so great. And then, God happens, and then it's great. So it seems kind of strange to start with the atmosphere right now, because that was awesome. So I titled my testimony Rags to Riches. I've been sober since February 9th, 2020. So thank you. That's 907 days, which is that's a lot of days. So I started drinking to numb myself, from shame and self-hatred, and I took those on because of behaviors, and I had those behaviors because I was broken. So that's I had deep father wounds, and even though I was in church for years, and it wasn't getting any better. So now we'll talk about why I have those father wounds, and then we're going to find out what happened and where they went. So my biological dad, although I consider my biology from heaven, and I have his DNA, so we know who I'm talking about, my biological dad. When he found out my mom was pregnant, he asked her to get an abortion, and she agreed. And then after a sleepless night, she told him in the morning that she changed her mind. He was leaving for college with a baseball scholarship, and he had dreams of being in the majors, and fatherhood didn't really fit into that plan. So that was that. And then I learned later that you can receive, I received rejection in my mother's womb because my father rejected me and didn't want me. He held me once when I was a baby. I have a picture to prove it. I cherished that picture when I was a little girl. I met him again when I was 5 for a paternity test. My mom says that I ran right up to him, jumped in his lap, put my arm around his neck, and said, "So you're my dad, huh?" I was not shy. I was not a shy kid at all. I remember later, I remember later desperately wanting to remember that meeting because my mom would, I'd heard my mom tell that, a few times. I would try to remember. I could remember things that didn't matter, like what the windows looked like and, just details that I didn't care about, but the one thing I wanted to see was his face. I tried to remember what his face looked like. I'm like, I know it's in there, my memory somewhere, because I saw it. So I tried, so I never could, though. So I met him again when I was 16. I didn't know I was going to see him. I went to meet my grandparents, and him and his wife flew from Alaska and surprised me. We watched home videos of his wife and his other 2 daughters that are much younger than me. And at the time, I know that he was just trying to show me, oh, these are your sisters. This is what they look like. And I didn't let people know if I was upset because I didn't want to upset them, so I kept everything in. So I just acted like it was great. But on the inside, I was like, I felt rejected, like, why not me? Why them and not me? What's wrong with me? All of those things. And saw the beautiful 2-story house they grew up in, and while my family lived in a 2-bedroom, 6 of us in a 2-bedroom, single wide, I felt a little like resentment, but it was mostly all like, what's wrong with me? Why doesn't he want me? So then that was what I looked for, like for the rest of my life, up until a certain point. I looked for feeling wanted. And then when I was, well, not and then, but we're going back to when I was 7, my mom got married, and we were really, my brother and I, I'm 7, he's 2. My mom got married, and I remember us being very excited. He was actually our babysitter. We called him Uncle Wade. He was very nice to us. He was fun. We loved him, and I remember being very excited that I had someone to call Dad. Like at 7, I knew that was missing. I knew I was supposed to have that, and I was really excited to have a dad. And I remember that being significant. So very soon after they got married, we moved from Bonners Ferry, Idaho, to Roseburg, because he had family that lived here. And basically everything changed like immediately. He like got together with old friends or something and got addicted to meth. So meth basically twisted him into a completely different person. And I did not understand what happened to Uncle Wade. Because Uncle Wade, that's who he really is. That's who he really was, and so I just didn't get it. So because of the meth, we were all abused. There was a lot of rage and mood swings, and you never knew what was going to happen. I saw my mom getting, hit, pushed, choked, screamed at, belittled. When my brother and I got older, we would, jump in to protect her, and then we'd end up protecting each other because he would turn on us. So that's how I grew up from 7 to 17, 18. Yeah, it was basically hell. The sex abuse started when I was about 9. The worst of it being ages 12 to 14. That's the same age as my Allison. which is, that gives me an emotional response because I'm like, my daughter will never experience the things that I've experienced, so it's gratitude that I am a curse breaker, cycle breaker. So is my brother, who's gonna, well, he's not gonna listen because we're not, but now I share that not to shame my stepdad. I never called him stepdad, I just call him dad. I don't, not to say, whatever, not to shame him or anything, because believe it or not, I love him. So do my brothers. I think it's because we just know that wasn't really him. I guess because we experienced Uncle Wade first, so then we knew that wasn't really him. Some people think it's weird that I can, he lived with me a few years back for like a year. Like, how could you have him in your house with your daughter? I'm like, because he's not on meth. He's a completely different person. But I bring it up, I mention it, I share it because basically the rejection and the abuse linked up. It linked up with the rejection, it linked up with the unwanted, it linked up with the I'm not good enough, and that trauma partnership led me to believe the only way that I could be wanted or loved was through attention, and the wrong kind of attention. When I felt desired by a man, I felt valuable. I felt valued. Oh, he wants me. And that I yearned for that. And I was going to get my needs met no matter, who I had to hurt in the process, because I was desperate to be better, I guess. So I got very good at pushing away guilt and remorse and justifying for a really long time until I couldn't anymore. You reach a point where you can't do that anymore. But when I couldn't do that anymore, actually all of that stuff led, to broken relationships and a lot of shame, self-disgust, hatred, alcoholism, suicidal thoughts. I felt worthless, and even though alcohol was supposed to numb all that, it really just amplified things. I lost jobs for being drunk at work. I don't recommend drinking alcohol at work. I drove drunk all the time. All the time. I drank while driving. I drove drunk with my kids in the car. My kids did not feel safe with me anymore. And I was their person, So heap on the shame, because I knew that they would tell me. They are bold little humans. They will tell you how they feel. I put myself in horrible situations that I'm surprised that, I'm not surprised, but I could have died. Like I should have, and I could be dead. Just really scary things. And I don't know if it's a tendency for someone that with alcoholism, there's a science, I don't know. I would black out really easily. Like, I could drink the same amount as someone else, and I would black out, but they wouldn't. And I hated that. But so it got to where I was blacking out almost every night. I don't know for how long. Like, for a year before I came here, it was really bad. Like, really bad. I would do horrible things and not even remember. And sometimes I would look at my phone, and that's how I would find out what drunk Angela did. And the absolutely debilitating, gut-wrenching, shame. I hated myself for what I was doing, and I couldn't stop. I wanted to. I couldn't do it. And I was desperate. I kept promising my husband, I'm not going to drink. I'm going to get better. And I would fail over and over again. And then I would just hate myself more. And I would hurt myself. I would hit myself. I gave myself black eyes. Just because I wanted to hurt myself, because I was hurting the people that I loved, and I deserved it. And I didn't even remember hurting them on top of it, and then kept doing it. And yeah, so it was when I got to that point, that's when I started thinking that that they would be better off without me. That voice starts to tell you, oh, you're so bad, they'll be better off without you. And so then you start thinking that they would be. I just was convinced that I was no good, that I was never going to be good, and this is what no good people do. And that's just who I am. And the last job that I lost, I loved that job, and I was really good at it, and they loved me, and I did an okay job of hiding my alcoholism until I really did not hide it at all. I was taking shots in the bathroom at work. I had wine in my water bottle. I believe I chugged a bottle of wine in the car on my lunch break, and then went back to work and drank more. I couldn't even function at work. I worked in a bank. You can't do that. Anyway, they had to call my husband to come pick me up because I was so drunk. I was humiliated and definitely fired. And I had been coming here kind of back and forth, in and out. I knew I wanted change, but I didn't know if I had it in me. And I knew I wanted it, and then I was scared I was going to fail and just feel like crap again, and just fear. But I came because my friend Carla has been my friend for many years, and she'd always tell me, you gotta come to worship, like she has just about everybody she's met. And then come to Elevate Recovery. I shared with her my struggle, and she's like, come. So I came. I even came to group drunk once. That's kind of embarrassing to admit. I didn't know I was going to say that. But I did. So it is what it is, right? So when I got fired, I called Holly, and she met me here the next day, and I told her what I had done and what had happened, and she didn't bat an eye. I wasn't really expecting that. I'd been in church most of my life, and I was just surprised by that reaction, And I'll never forget the look on her face. It was all kind of glowy. You know how she's got that glow. She's glowing. But I could see love and compassion in her eyes for me. And that gave me hope that there was something in me acceptable. And now I know that that was my introduction to the Father's love. Right in that moment, when I saw that in her eyes, that was when love came in, and I was a goner. I didn't leave again. So that's February 9th, 2020, my day one is that day. It's so funny, I read over this, after I wrote it, and then I was fine through everything until I start talking about my encounters, and then I'm like, blubber baby. But, what I did is I just kept showing up. Even when I didn't want to, or I didn't feel good enough or something, I just kept showing up. And I spent a lot of time right there on my face, crying, singing, crying out, saying, I feel how broken I felt, how I felt this and I felt that. And God acknowledged every single one of my feelings. He acknowledged it. He acknowledged why I felt that way. He acknowledged it, and then he spoke truth over it, and he redeemed all of it. Like, my journal's so packed full of encounters. I was like, I wish I could read every single one of them to you guys, because they're freaking amazing. And some of the things he's shown me, and it's just rad. He's rad. I want to go back because I feel like I skipped something that I wanted to tell you guys. I guess I did. Okay. Yeah. There's a line in a song that says, when I'm singing to you, you're singing it back to me. There's a whole playlist that I call my resurrection songs, because they were the songs that we were doing here in that time. Because they were the lyrics, the encounters I had because of them brought me back to life. So they're my resurrection songs, and we sang a couple of them tonight. Anyhow, there was a lot of, so I would sing adoration to him, and then he would say them back to me. And I'd be like, no, I just sang that to you. No, I'm saying that to you. And then he started calling me honey, so I would know, I don't know, it was my grandpa called me honey and sweetheart. And so the Lord talks to me that way sometimes, and I love it. The message of belonging and acceptance and love that I was getting from him was like water to my soul. It was like everything I'd always wanted and had craved, and every lie I believed about him, about myself, was being destroyed and replaced with the truth. And I just kept saying yes, because there was no way that I was missing this window of mercy that was before me. There was no way I was ever going back, and I was going to get everything that he was waiting to give me. You know, I want it all. And yeah, I told him once that I want to be the woman that you died for. And he said, but honey, you already are. I'm just waiting for you to see it. And that kind of wrecked me, because that's what started the perception, you know. I'll mention that in a minute. A huge part of my resurrection process was going to Elevate conferences. A little plug. They're very interactive. It's almost more like a workshop than a conference. But I learned how to do Emmanuels or exchanges, and that was like a vital tool for me, because these things would come up in me, you know, thoughts or feelings, and sometimes they'd scare me because they would be familiar of past things, and you know, what do I do with these? And so with an exchange, I take what I'm not supposed to have in the first place, usually, right? What I don't want, a burden, a fear, a thought, an emotion, something that's good, actually. I've given him people. You know, I love these people. I like my siblings. I love them so much, and I want such great things for them, but they're not my burden to carry, and they're his. So I'm placing that, you know. So I put them in my hand, and I can see them as little people in my hand. Like I get visual, sometimes it's funny. He makes me laugh, and I give them to him, and then I say, "What do you want to give me in exchange?" And it's always amazing. Always. I've even said, I don't have anything to exchange to give you, but these are so fun. Can you just give me something? And he did. It was really cool. You can do that. Did you know that? You could do that. You can. Yeah, it was cool. I've given him, you know, all kinds of yucky stuff. And he always gives me something beautiful, like peace, rejuvenation, life. I've seen like jewels in my hand. One time Jesus walked right up to me and placed a little tree in my hand, a little like evergreen tree. Just placed it in my hand. It was so cute. And I tried to draw it in my journal. I can't draw. It looks nothing like it did here. Anyway, the tree symbolized rejuvenation, and that's what he was doing to my heart. And so he had me push the tree into my heart. So those are what exchanges are. They're just really awesome encounters, and it's not just, I don't know, you're not just going through the motions. Stuff happens. So you should do them. They're really amazing. You really should. So every time I give him something yucky, he'd either show me how he was redeeming it, or he would give me something to replace it. In the last 2.5 years, there's definitely been times when I've been afraid, or old thought habits have tried to have a voice, and condemnation that would try to speak to me, and tell me I'm not doing enough, I'm not doing it right, this isn't happening because you're not doing this, or, stupid stuff like that. And in the beginning, I would want to isolate because that was familiar. It was familiar and falsely comfortable. But instead of isolating in those moments, I chose to reach out. I feel like that's showing up and reaching out. Because when you're alone, well, you're never alone, but when you feel alone, you're going to be weaker, right? So I would reach out. I would reach out to Carla. I would reach out to Holly, and they would speak truth and life to me. Or Carla would just say, "Who told you that?" I had to reach out for a landline when I felt unsteady. I had to. Or I knew I was either going to slow down my process, which was not okay with me, or I was going to mess up, and I didn't want to do that. I just didn't want to give anything up. And I did learn that I wasn't ever going to miss out on anything. If something did happen and I messed up or I made a mistake or something, it was going to be okay. But that took a while for me to believe that. It took a little while. Yeah. So now I don't isolate. I rest. And there's a big difference, right? I would say the scripture that themed my first year of sobriety is Isaiah 60, verse 1, which we read probably about 5,000 times in 2020, I think. A lot of times. Arise and shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon you. This was my reset, and I knew it. I knew it. I knew it was my time to succeed and to let it all go and become who I was made to be. I knew it, and I was just not going to let it go, and I was never going to go back. There was a moment. I think I only had like 2 weeks of sobriety, and I went to a baby shower, and they had alcohol there, and it wasn't really bothering me. I was so solid. It didn't bother me at all. But I started to feel annoyed that I wasn't normal. Like all my other friends, they can drink and they're fine. Why can't I? And then it's like, oh, well, you probably can now. And I went to a regular store that I would go to because it was right by my house, and I stood and looked at the beverages and thought, I wonder if I could. And then all these flashes of hiding it and it was so quick. Hiding it and feeling bad about myself, all of it just came like really quick. And then I thought, but what if I can't? And I don't want to risk it. So I turned around and I left. The very next day, my son asked me, how many days do you have, Mom? And I was able to say, I have like 16 days instead of I have 1. And that was a gift. That was a gift to me that he asked me that. He was such a cheerleader for me. He's 12 now. He would ask me all the time, how many days do you have? He'd tell me he's proud of me. That's awesome, Mom. I'm so proud of you. That was amazing. So I was really glad that I was able to say 16 days and not 1 day. And that moment right there, I was like, oh yeah, that's never going to be a problem like ever again. Like it sealed it in me, you know what I mean? So, and then I learned things like that glory has a whole new meaning than what I thought. Glory doesn't just mean the power of God or the manifest presence of God. It also means God's good opinion, and that blew me away. Like, first of all, God has good opinions of me, and it added a depth to scripture and worship songs that I had never experienced like that before, and it made it personal and it made it intimate and amazing. Learning what it means to abide in Him, stay attached, to accept my acceptance. That was a good one for me. You're already accepted, just accept it. Just accept it. That I lack no good thing. That He is enough, so I am enough. That I'll have what I need to have when I need to have it. And I'll know what I need to know when I need to know it. That there's no performance, no behavior, no task that I could do to lose or gain His love and acceptance. And there's an opportunity for an upgrade in everything. Everything that comes at me, there's an opportunity for me to choose. And when I choose love, when I choose Him, and I choose life, I get an upgrade every single time, and He's never failed. He's proven that to me over and over again. Even though He doesn't have to prove anything to me, He does. He's such a humble God. He really is. He's awesome. That joy in hardship is the pathway to peace. Amen. That I can trust Him and be content in every circumstance. I believe that. I am still currently walking that out, and that's okay. That's what's also really fun about Him, is that I don't stop growing. There's always something new and fresh with Him, and that's pretty awesome. I also learned that I'm His daughter, and He is my Father. That He loved me from the start. He always wanted me, and He never left me. He said to me, "Well done, my good and faithful daughter. You didn't let the pain of brokenness rule you. You overcame just as you were designed to do. Well done." And I'm going to share one last thing. He invited me to go deeper because I was feeling very comfortable. I'm like, I am liking this. You and me and you, this is great. And He's like, let's go a little deeper. And I wasn't afraid or anything, but I kind of hesitated because I was just really happy with where we were. And this is what He said to me. He said, "Do not waste time pacing outside the garden gates. You think that feels safe? Come here. I know you felt comfortable close to me, but there is a closer that I long for with you. Watch the walls of the garden disappear. They are not even really there. Nothing separates you from me but your perception. There is no spoon." I don't know if anybody's going to get that but me, but there is no spoon. It's all the garden. Open your eyes to the garden, to the communion before you. You are perfect as you are, so come. That's it. The end. That was awesome. Now what do I do? There is no spoon is a Matrix reference. He's sitting there staring at the spoon. It's not actually there, and it starts to bend. And God knows me, so he used a movie quote.
Super incredible. So incredibly proud of you and Shane. Just so incredibly grateful that we get to run with you guys and just be a part of your story and watch the Lord just absolutely take you guys into a fullness that he really is inviting all of us into. And it's miraculous. That changes things. That right there, what we just experienced, that's what shifts atmospheres. You want to know what brings miracles? That. You want to know what brings signs and wonders? That. You want to know what heals marriages? That. What heals relationships with parents and children? That. The thing that hit me was the days, the hours of just laying on the ground, pouring out your heart to him. I can't tell you how that's Holly and I's story. For years, we just showed up. Sometimes I couldn't even sing, but we showed up. Some of you know that for a long time we had a boys ranch and we were just so desperate. We were so desperate for God to show up. We were so desperate for God to change things. We were so desperate to be changed ourselves. There were so many Monday nights were our night. This is before we had daily worship, and Monday nights were our night. And we would literally, many nights, we're just all laying on the ground in the living room. We're just crying out to God. We're sometimes until 2 and 3 in the morning, just laid out. We had to put the kids to bed in my mom and dad's room, and we just had to press in, and we just had to stay, and we just had to push through. It truly is a gift of desperation. When we hit that moment, there's just this moment of a gift that God gives us, and he's right there, and he's been waiting for that moment. He literally sets us up for the moment. And because we say yes, and because he's actually giving us the desire and the ability to say yes. And when we go, it is the most it's the most incredible thing. Every single one of us has this story inside of us. Every single one of us has, that's the whole point of salvation. It's the whole point of a testimony. It's the whole point of everything that Jesus did. The whole purpose was to take us out of the life that we thought we had and bring us into the life that they always purposed us to have. Always. This was always how it was supposed to be. Some of you are still in the process, and that's okay. Be in the process and embrace the process. Embrace it and embrace the times when you're just on the floor and you're just crying out to God and you're just desperate. Embrace that time. Because that's the time, that's the unfolding, it's the unraveling. It's the crumbling of the old so that the new can birth. It's the seed going into the soil and dying so that life can come.